Hey, what's up, everybody? Cameron Hemphill here, your host for Medical Millionaire. Hey, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to tune into the podcast. Our goal is to give incredible value and insight for practice owners. So, if you own a med spa, you're thinking about getting into this space, all of these episodes are 100% designed for you and to help you take your practice to the next level. So, guys, today I have a guest on the show. I have Dr. Sara Trammell. She is from Abilene, Texas. She started the Beauty Bus, she has a super cool story and a very relatable story in the sense of how I have seen a lot of patterns where you start something and continue to see it grow and not go all in from the onset. And what I mean by that is really looking at it in the sense of being strategic, right? Saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to come into the space and maybe I'm going to start smaller and do, for example, she started with Botox parties, and I'll let her tell her whole story. But she started with that. The business started growing. Finances probably get stable. And I'm totally going on a whim and guessing here, but I've seen the movie before and I've seen what success looks like, right? And I've also seen what failure looks like too. And so I think a lot of times, when people get into the space, they think they have to like start out with state of the art equipment and state of the art, like everything. And this lady has just absolutely nailed it with continuing to grow a practice. She's had the practice for 5 years. She has a really cool historical building that they just moved into, and a few providers that are just cranking and have a lot of fun. So, Dr. Sara, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So, I know that we were talking a little bit offline. I think it's I see this pattern, and that's why I was going there. Take us through just the whole story. Like, you have a unique story, the beauty bus, and you're not it's not a bus anymore, but it was, and now it's like a mascot is what you're saying. So walk us through that story. How did it start there and then transition? Now we're in year 5 and it's a beautiful home and there might be a swimming pool involved. I don't know. I'll let her tell
Yeah, we've come from a bus to a pool. So, I'm not sure what's next, but sure. No, I'd love to. I loved your intro because that is usually the advice that I give people is that you don't have to go all in at the beginning. And obviously, if I were looking back, I would give myself some even more advice. But basically, I'm an MD, so I went to medical school. My background was family practice. I never really had a very traditional family practice job. I did urgent care. I had 3 babies in 4 years, so I was I was playing mom and all those kind of things for a long time. And I did find myself eventually. We had moved to Abilene. It'll be 17 years actually this summer, and so we had moved to Abilene. I eventually found myself with 3 or 4 different part-time physician jobs. I was doing hospital work, ethics committee, hospice, and I was working for a medical spa that the hospital owned, which was kind of a weird situation anyway. But that was my entrance into the medical spa situation. So that closed, and I learned a lot from that. I don't think I knew at the time how much I was learning, but 6 months later, when I was looking back on my time, I actually learned a lot of really good lessons from that. But I literally said, you know what, I can do this on my own. I can do Botox. And a lot of my friends were saying, well, where are we going to go now? And so I came up with the concept of just doing small parties. This was in 2019. So this was before kind of the whole big med spa rush. And I literally bought a box on Amazon that was I still have it. I should have brought it out, but it's cute. It's just a big black cosmetic box, basically. I bought that. I bought a couple of bottles of Botox. I looked up how to do paperwork correctly. I called a couple of friends. We set up some kitchen Botox parties, which sometimes get a bad rap. These were all people I knew. They knew me. I knew where I was going into. And so we did Botox parties, and I just started with that. And I found myself 6 months later with a list of almost 200 patients that I had treated. And so I kind of, like you said, all of a sudden I realized, this actually is working. Those parties turned into just a list of clients. And then it was the request of, well, I need somebody to do my lips. Will you we need a laser. All the requests were coming. And so I just let that kind of drive me. I did a lot of training on my own. I paid for a lot of training, which I think definitely served me well. So I slowly built that. I ended up moving. At the time, I then purchased a bus. I should go back to the bus. So we did buy an Airstream trailer, and I drove that around for probably about 4 or 5 months. And we would stop and just do pop-up Botox parties. And that was really a lot of fun. I did all of my own marketing. It was basically an Instagram account, was the whole gist of that. So very low expenses. I was literally buying Botox just a couple of bottles at a time for each party I needed. And so I was doing all of my own follow-ups, and just kind of running a one-woman show. So fast forward 6 months later, and like I said, I was getting requests for kind of the next level. So I went and trained. I kind of put the bus aside for a minute. We actually moved I have a guest house that was on my property. And so we converted that into my office, and I functioned out of there for the last 5 years. It was about 300 square feet. So it had a bathroom and an extra room. And so it has then grown a lot since then, but I started very slow with more fillers and more services. I did go ahead and purchase a couple of lasers, probably maybe a little bit early, but it actually served me well. And I was able to kind of really round out my entire services that I was able to offer. So functioned by myself for a year, and then hired my first employee February of 2020. So
Nice.
you can imagine how much fun that was when March and April came around. But you know what? We learned a lot from that. We kind of put on our bootstraps and just made it work. So I did hire my first employee then. She worked above my garage. So we had an apartment set up there that we had renters in for years. I eventually kicked them out and converted it into her office. So she did laser treatments, permanent makeup, all kinds of facial treatments. So she was my first esthetician, and she's still with me here today. She's about to be a 5-year employee come February. And so over time, over the last 4 years from that point, I now have 12 employees. We have 4 estheticians. We now have a separate practice 20 miles south of us in Buffalo Gap. And like Cameron said, we did finally move out of my whole house situation. We gathered everybody up. We had really expanded into all the garage space. I kicked my husband out of the garage and, parked in the front. But I now have a dietitian, nutritionist who does wellness for me. So she still functions over there, but we have the Buffalo Gap location. I have a massage therapist, and my estheticians rotate out there. I have an RN injector that has been very successful the last 2 years. My nurse practitioner, unfortunately, just moved actually this week. So we're all a little bit sad about that, but it was fun to have her on our team. And so we now all function in this space. We all get to work together, which was definitely something new and has been a lot of fun for us to grow that. And we're about to just embark on a little bit more of the wellness journey, which I think a lot of people in this industry are doing. I kind of drag my feet on all the new things. I want to do all of my research and really get a feel for it, but we're getting ready to launch into the wellness services. So, but that's kind of been my story. It was me, and 5 years later, there's now 12 of us. So it's been quite an adventure.
Yes, that's amazing and such a cool story. Like, from going from, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to try this, to having a Botox party, to like being creative and getting a cool Airstream. You guys got to see her Airstream, by the way. Go to her website. It's AbileneBeautyBus.com, or just go to her Instagram, but that's a good gateway to get to her Instagram. You can see how cool this bus is, and it's a great way to like be just different, right? Like be completely different, keep costs low, like a great way to mitigate costs. And some liability exposure there, and get creative. So to the Airstream bus, to the house, right, to where you actually had like another piece of real estate on property that you leveraged, right? So just really like some of the call outs that I see here that Dr. Sara has done a great job, guys, is mitigating risk from a financial standpoint, of like doing a great job of handling from the finances and growing correctly, right? Instead of like over expending yourself and really investing in potentially the wrong areas. Like I'm sure that there's failures throughout that entire journey, and we can jump into that. But like some of the call outs and patterns that I see that build success is this doesn't happen overnight. It just doesn't happen overnight. And I think that there's this misconception out there that you can pull up Instagram and see success and instantly think like, I need that too. I'm going to try it, and then throw in the towel in 6 months and spend a tremendous amount of money without really having a plan, right? And taking things slow. So I love it. I think it's amazing. I mean, going from wanting to do this to 12 employees to having a really cool historical property, and I'm sure the culture at the team is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when I speak to groups or even when individuals reach out to me, I have to remember how small I started. And I always love like doing these kind of talks and talking to you because it reminds me I have to go back and remember the Botox party and the black crate in my paper charts. And it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like I tell a story to my children where I'm like, well, when I was in high school 30 years ago, so it's not that long ago that 5 years ago, I was literally in my car with my printed consent forms. And literally, I need to find a picture. I had a digital camera, and that is how I took pictures of my patients before and after. And I found that camera not that long ago, and my kids were searching through it, and they're like, who are all these people? I was like, oh, that was my Botox party. I forgot about that. But, keep it simple, stupid. Like,
Yeah.
it does not take a $50,000 loan to do. I mean, well, 50,000 wouldn't even get you very far. But anyway, you don't need to buy a whole space. You don't need to buy a whole office. Like, test the waters. I'm in conversation right now with a provider that's about, they're about an hour and a half from us. So we're a small town. Abilene is 125,000 people. We're 3 hours west of Dallas and 2.5 hours east of Lubbock. So if you know Texas at all, first of all, it's huge, but those are kind of our two pinpoints. And then we're right in the middle. So there's not much around me. So a lot of small towns. So we gain people from a lot of our smaller communities. Anyway, we're in contact with a PA that's looking at kind of getting into the business, and we're discussing, and I literally sent her an SOP on how to run a Botox party. And we're trying to kind of decide, like, is her community open for a whole medical spa situation or expansion into her town? And I have thankfully been able to go back and be like, you know what? You need to do it like I did it, maybe a little bit tweaked. Maybe I've learned a few things from then, but like, let's just start with this and see what interest you get. And then we will move forward. Like, you can move forward real fast. Like I learned it didn't take but 3-6 months before I outgrew the bus, right? And people's kitchens. But you never know what kind of environment you're in from a financial standpoint. Everything's a little bit off now compared to what it was back in 2019. But, test the waters. You shouldn't have you shouldn't have to make a loan to figure it out. Like, I literally, until I bought this office at year 5.5, I really had zero debt from my business. I was able just to kind of slowly work it so that I could eventually just kind of keep building.
Yeah, that's I love that, and it's great advice, right? It's great advice. I think like test the waters, test your demographic, like know exactly what you're dealing with. Shoot, you may not even like it, like
true. Yeah, that's what I told her. I'm like, you need to see if you like this, and because it's more than just shooting Botox, right? Like you said, Instagram makes it all look very glamorous. Some people get really bored with that. I love it. I love the interaction and talking. I have a lot of colleagues in the industry who are, 4 or 5 years in, even more than that, and they're all like, "Oh, if I never have to inject Botox again, I'll be happy." And that's not me personally.
Yeah.
I love chatting. Like, I love the interaction. It's like, I always say, it's kind of like coming to the beauty salons of the 50s, like Steel Magnolias,
Right.
where it's just so much interaction each day. It's where I gain my adult conversation that, especially when my kids were much younger, I was really hungry for. And so, make sure you like it. And yes, there's lots of ways of doing it, but you shouldn't have to go into stupid amounts of debt just to even see if this is something that you want to pursue.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you got to enjoy what you're doing, right? And so, like, because burnout's real,
Yeah.
it truly is. And I think you make a great point in terms of, hey, this is a great way to, have an adult conversation and something that's like intellectual, like that's intriguing. And I mean, I would assume. I mean, my wife's been in the beauty business for 20 over 20 years. She's a stylist, and the amount of interaction, like she like, I think at this point she just goes there to have connections and conversation and see
Yeah.
women like build confidence with themselves. Like she just
Yeah.
loves that, lights her up.
And you get all the scoop, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
you
sure.
learn all
I'm
kinds of
sure.
things. So people will tell you all kinds of things when you're sticking needles in their face. No, but yeah, I mean, I love, I've done a lot of work. I know that Kaylee Lindholm, but I've done a lot of work with Kaylee and business consulting, and that all came as I got further and further in. But she really drives home, what's your mission and why are you doing this? And I always go back to, and it kind of sounds a little cheesy. It's the same thing of I want to instill confidence in people, but that truly like is the reason I get up and walk to work in the morning, is
Yeah.
that I have so many instances, it seems like almost every day at least, we have women that come in and just are thankful for all the things that we can provide. And they seem a little bit, some of the things sometimes seem a little excessive or vain, or you can use 1,000 different adjectives. But
Yeah.
when they walk out and they feel more confident about themselves, then, I feel like we've done our job for the day.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having a conversation the other day on a podcast, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm not a physician. I think you guys have such a cool job. Like it's a really cool to be able to look at someone, they leave with a smile, you build confidence, and have a successful business and practice at the same time. Also training other people, right? At some point, like whoever you have on your team and employees, you're building something special with them too, from a business standpoint, from a financial standpoint. So it's really cool. Like the more I learn about aesthetics and what med spa owners go through, the more respect I have for you guys. And I've been in this since 2017, and I'm constantly still learning. I need a lot of work on the clinical side, but I think I kind of know my way around a little bit.
Yeah.
um, Not enough to conduct a procedure. You don't want me doing
Hey,
that.
that's all right. That's a small part of it. And I think that is something that I've definitely learned over the years. And I had no idea. So, I still consider myself a doctor, medical provider, and the hat of entrepreneur, business owner, and
Yep.
all the other adjectives. I sometimes I'm like, oh, that's not really me. Like, oh no, 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 not that, not that. And
Yeah.
I have to, I have to be reminded, or I have to. Sometimes it's the reality of, yeah, no, like you have 12 employees, you make payroll every week, you have taxes to pay, and
Yeah.
there's so much more to that. And yes, there's the negative side of that, but you know every year when we kind of sit down as a group and I kind of run numbers and look at all the things, some of the caveats that I've learned is, I provide for 12 other people to be able to provide for their families. So,
Great point.
I find a lot of joy in that. Our team, people, I will say, I probably take for granted the amazing team that we have. This was our first employee. that has left us. Now she moved. It wasn't any bad blood or anything, but we've had a few other employees that have. I love to hire nursing students to kind of come in and they run their little. We know they're going to be here for 3 months or a year and kind of do their stint and then move on. And we love to watch them gain experience and flourish. But Johanna was like our first kind of big kid employee that we hired, and then she had a lot of life changes and ended up moving to East Texas. But it was really sad for me to see her go. And we all of my employees, like I said, my longest one is 5 years. Most of them are anywhere from 3 to 4 years. And so, yeah, it's a great team. We have a lot of fun. We learn from each other. We really support each other. But it is a lot of responsibility, and it's something that I don't think I ever really wrapped my brain around. That as a physician, you also can be a business owner and an entrepreneur, and that's not something that they teach us, right? Like
True.
there is no business class in medicine, and although I would love to eventually see that, because I barely knew how to balance my checkbook when I graduated from medical school, let alone manage debt and start a business and, think about what some other options were. But that aspect of it was something that I learned slowly. And then, like I said, I did get business coaching, and that has been a massive improvement in my personal growth, my business growth, and just kind of the success of our business has been stabilizing that aspect too.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's the other part of it that I think a lot of practice owners need to take super serious is there's so much education on the clinical side, the safety side, the physician side, and then like where's the business, where's the
Yeah.
finance, where's the marketing, where's the technology, like how do I do this thing? And there's a lot of support out there, like networking, like the conferences. There's a lot of great support. Dr. Sara can talk about that. But a couple call outs that I want to ask you. When you first got in, could you imagine saying like when you like your first Botox party, for example, hey, in 5 years you're going to have 12 employees and you're going to have like a couple locations?
I know.
Would
Well,
freak you
yeah.
out, right?
It's funny because when I first started working with Kaylee, we would do these group calls, and I really prided myself in being a solo provider. I was like, uh,
Hmm.
she was talking to some other business owners that had groups, and they were talking about all the bad aspects of employees and how you would manage them and all these things. And I just would literally sit in my chair very smug and be like, well, if you just didn't hire anybody and you didn't have an employee, then you wouldn't have to worry about having employees. And so I literally took that attitude for a couple of years, and then I was like, well, I just have this one, so I'm good. Like she's fine. And now you get what you don't always. What is the I can't remember the statement, but don't just put all your eggs in one basket. Like, you're going to have to eat your words sometimes, because,
Yeah.
it all of a sudden I finally jumped on the bus of hiring people and getting some more support as I kind of wanted to scale back my hands-on work. And then I really enjoyed the entrepreneurial part of it, and the management. So anyway, you never know where you're going to end
Yeah,
up.
that's super interesting. Super interesting. And I mean, there in this industry, it's hard to retain good talent, right? Like it's there's so you've done an incredible job of that. What is it about your practice and the team? Like what like and you of really diving into entrepreneurship, management, understanding how to truly run a practice like a business, how to have team culture, like what are some of the things that just really stand out to you that create such a close tight group that you guys, I'm sure it's a great time at the practice and people want to go there. Like what is it that you've done and learned for the audience?
Yeah, I think self exploration or self looking back and trying to figure out what you've done well is not always my forte. I'm a little bit more of a better critic than I am a cheerleader. But
Okay.
I will say and I would, I always am like, I would love to ask my employees, like, what it is. But I will say one of the things that I have always been very adamant about is honesty, and being very open and honest with my employees. I don't have a lot of secrets. We don't have a lot of things that I'm doing that they don't know about. Even from a financial standpoint, I kind of at the end of each year, I walk through, you know, how much things cost. I think that's something that I learned very early on, was that I was the only one who was paying those bills. And so all they can see is the intake and how much money they're getting from patients. And they don't understand always what it took from an output standpoint. So I'm very honest with them about financials, and then just the health of the business. I'm very honest, and I hope that they understand what my goals are for acutely long term, like where we're headed. I do think I'm very cautious when it comes to new things. And so my hope for our patients and then for my employees is that anything that I present to them, I hope that they realize that there's been a lot of effort put into making sure, and not that there aren't mistakes made or changes that have to be done, but if something's new, it's been researched, and I have done the due diligence to kind of make sure that it's something that we want to pursue.
Yeah.
We do a good job of mixing in social time and spending time together outside of the office, with obviously work. Most of my employees, it's kind of funny because I would say I should figure out their average age. I think their average age is probably like 26. There's most of them are very young. And so I try not to be too much of a mother figure. I could be their mother, most of them. And so, but it is I do think they probably see me as somebody who's a little bit calmer and not quite so reactive, and just kind of go with the flow a little bit. So I hope I don't mind them seeing me as a more mature mother type figure, in that, okay, she's slow and steady and gonna win the race, and they can be all wild and crazy in the background.
Yeah.
But we try to keep a pretty level head around here.
Yeah, I mean that comes with experience, that comes with seeing market fluctuation. That's great. I think that's a great point. Like, I think like being, respond versus being reactive, that's a wonderful point. Especially in this space where, depending on the demographic, right? And just like not having the experience, I think that's a great point. Just having sprinkling a little bit of wisdom on top of the team to kind of keep them focused, right? Just having somebody that is out there that's like a great leader. Great leaders have those traits, right? And that's a really good point. You made another point that I thought was really interesting for the audience too, which was sharing like what the expenses are at some level. Because they a lot of times they can say, wow, I see what we're charging for, all these treatments, these services, memberships are going up, we just bought a laser, like, wow, we just bought a new building, right? But a lot of that comes with expense. I think that's brilliant, because you can, in the industry, you can see potentially people wanting to go do things on their own, and maybe at some point they should, but a lot of times they jump too soon, right? And they don't realize what it truly takes and how well they actually have it. It's like you have no liability besides like your safety, right?
Yeah,
like you can just come and go. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, we have moments of that, right? And I really was hesitant about giving them too much information, or I didn't want it to feel like, oh, woe is me, like my electricity bill is this, so it's not that. But it is just a recognition of, let me tell you all that we have put into this so that you can output at a much higher level. And so, the first time, this was several years ago, it may have been one of the first lasers that I bought with employees around. And I told them how much it was, just kind of flippantly. Like I think I just was like, oh, that was a fast $150,000. And I thought they were both going to fall over. I mean, and I just realized I didn't know how much lasers were before I was given the bill, like why, how would they have ever known that that's how much it was? And so it was
Yeah,
really, it was an eye-opening moment to me. Like, listen, these things, just because I know them doesn't mean that everybody else knows them. So
true,
we've
true.
taken the mindset more of, listen, we're going to show you what this whole business looks like, and then let's build it all together. So
Yeah, no, I love that. That's incredible leadership. I think you've done an incredible job, and that's why you have great retention. Is you also on the social aspect too, right? Creating it fun, getting to know each other on a personal level, not just the business level, and creating a family, if you will. I think is really important and creates a great patient experience at the end of the day,
we
which is
also,
what you're
I will
after.
say, one of the other aspects is that we also train together. So,
Mm,
like, I am trained, other than doing facials, like, I have been trained on all of our devices, even though I don't use them any longer. And we really think of training as very important. And so we do a lot of group training together. We go to Aesthetic Next. We do online webinars. We just bought a new laser the other day, and we have that training set up. And the whole office is coming. We're
awesome.
bringing on hormones, and we're going to be training everybody on not how to do it, obviously, but what to say and how to talk to patients. And so we really think of every single piece of our practice as a team. And so I can give a pretty good description of a powder brow. Not as good as Deanna, who's doing it, but I can get my way through it, and I understand it well enough to be able to talk to a patient about it, so that it's not always, well, I don't really know what to say about that, but let me get you
Yeah.
in with Deanna. No, it's like, let me tell you what I know, and then we can go from there. So as long as everybody kind of knows what everybody else is doing, I think that goes a long way too.
Yeah, that's huge. That's the cross training aspect right there. It's huge. So you can talk like you can be somewhat dangerous, right? To get the idea kind of
True.
going, and
Yeah.
then tee up a wonderful intro for a team member that like that's their area of expertise.
Yeah.
This is great. Like there's okay, so I want to talk about a couple other things because you made some early on in our conversation. You talked about the camera of the before and afters, or just the pictures, which is awesome because you're implementing process back then, and the technology is obviously advanced, right?
Bane of
But
our actors. Yes.
yeah, and you probably and like I think you had paper charts. I think you said
Oh, yeah.
something. Okay. So walk us through that, right? Because I know that is challenging. I know you're not doing that now. But again, just evolving through the business from what you use to implementing like EMR solutions, maybe CRM, like website,
Yeah.
charting, patient communication, stuff like that, I think would be interesting for
Okay,
the
I have to
audience.
rewind my brain to try and remember all the things. But so when I first started out, I mean, I trained back in the day when we all had paper charts, right? Like the hospital was just full of charts. And so an electronic medical record didn't even exist when I was going through training. And so a paper chart was not that foreign to me
Sure.
at the time. So I had like a little briefcase, and I would carry them around with me. But yes, we had paper charts. The most electronic thing I did was I eventually got onto Square, and I did Square appointments. And so that is how, so from almost from day one, I mean, other than a Botox party, which you can't really book online back then, but as soon as I started seeing patients on my own, we started doing online booking. And so that is probably one of my biggest moments of success is like I always have done online booking, and that has been horrendously successful for us. So, but I started with Square. I started with a local website developer that was okay. I mean, they built one
Yeah.
for me. I had to teach them what aesthetics was. I had to teach them what Botox was, and it was kind of like holding their hand. And so then I think it was basically right about the time that COVID hit. So I did that for a year, a little bit more, 14, 15 months. COVID hit, and obviously we had to take a break, and so we had a month off. And in that month, I switched over to aesthetic record and converted all of my paper charts into an electronic medical record. We switched all of our appointments to booking then online with them. And then I called you and I said, I need a big girl website. I had seen Shelby Miller's, and I was a huge Roomba fan. I had done a lot of her trainings during COVID, and had gotten to know her and see her work during that time. And I was like, I want a website like Shelby's. And I think that's what I told you 5 years ago. I said, hey, I want this. And, you were obviously super helpful. We were able to get that all built and designed. And we've kind of had all of those. We're still with the aesthetic record. We've been through several different website changes and improvements over the years. And, I'm a loyalist, and I think I told you that probably when we met years ago, was that, listen, if you'll do a good job and we have good communication, I will be the most loyal person in the world to you. So, just let's work together, because I like to have good relationships. I want it to be something that we look back 10 years from now, we're like, oh, remember back then. So, so I'm very loyal. I'm loyal to my different filler companies and Juvo, and the reps and the people that have kind of been supportive of me from the beginning. I hate to say I reward them. That sounds very like egotistical, but I mean, I really reward loyalty. So, so we're with Aesthetic Record. They function for all three of our clinics. That has worked out super well. I finally, about a year ago, or maybe it's been two, when we changed my garage into my RN's office, I finally shredded all of my paper charts. So I had a couple of big boxes of paper charts, and I finally felt like, okay, I think these are safe now to be dismissed. But we had a moment for the paper chart, and actually, as we are starting hormone stuff now, I told my office manager, I was like, I think we're going to have to do paper charts to start with. She was like, I was like, I can't handle all this stuff, and there's too many papers, and I think we're just going to have to do paper. She was like, oh my gosh, old lady. Like, I don't know that we need to do paper, but to be determined. So we'll see.
To be determined. Yeah, I love that. It's it just goes back to the whole journey, the whole story. I mean, learning a lot from using tools and tech, and I mean, to Square appointments, Square still to this day is a great tool from a consumer standpoint for online business.
Right. I mean,
they've done a good job.
When people ask me my opinion, like I said, I have to kind of rewind and be like, you don't have to have all these things. Like, there's 2 or 3 things that I think are super important. People being able to get a hold of you, being able to book an appointment. You've got to obviously keep track of your records, however you want to do it. You've got to, that's your responsibility as a provider. You need to be well trained and have good follow up. I think that was one of the reasons that I was successful, was that I texted each patient that I treated 2 weeks after, how are things? Can I help you? I want to make sure that you're doing well. And when I'm now training people to kind of start their own business, those are the kind of caveats that I think, oh, I have to remember to tell them that, because I just did it because that's how I did it. But you don't always know that that's people's intentions. So.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's super interesting. Now that's probably automated, right? With some sort of follow-up system, probably with the aesthetic record, I would assume.
I mean, a little bit. I still make all of my employees follow up individually, because we're in a small town. I love that we know all these people. You see them at the grocery store, you see them at the movie theater, wherever, the bar, and so I enjoy that personal interaction. And so it's still one of our core values that we touch base with people individually and a little bit more privately. Of course, there's some automated things that happen, but we do try to keep it a little bit more personal.
Yeah, I love that. Especially with the town that you live in, the population size, that makes total sense. So another question, how much has being active on and disciplined in marketing been for the practice, right? And I mean, like if you look at Dallas, you have a practice in Dallas, population size completely different. Like marketing plan and strategy is going to be different,
Right.
right? Versus where where you are, Abilene, 125,000 people. But by the way, where I'm recording this, the house that I'm at right now, it's about the same size as where is your town, which is interesting, and I see it completely different. I'm just curious from a marketing standpoint of that demographic, that size, like you have the ability to reach everybody through social and through word of mouth. It's just I'm just
Right.
curious to hear your take on it.
So it's funny that you asked because my opinions on that, it's not so much that they've changed. I think as you grow, right, you have to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the first, I mean, I literally spent no money on advertising. I had an Instagram account that I was in charge of. And so it was free. And so I tell people, you don't have to spend a ton of money on advertising. Now, I think you have to understand your demographic, just like you said. If I was in Dallas or Plano or wherever, any kind of
Yeah.
big city, that would not be the case, right? Like there's someone on every street corner, there's two or three in a row. And so that it is a competition. You do have to figure out how to get a hold of these people. When I got into the business in 2019, there was two plastic surgeons that had smaller med spas in town, but that wasn't their focus, which
Hmm.
I believe is correct for them. Like, right? Like the plastic surgeons need to be in surgery.
Yeah.
That's where they're using their talents, and that's the best use of their money. So I never even saw them really as competition because they kind of had their own little thing. I was not trying to be a plastic surgeon, and they weren't trying to be injectors, which is another discussion. But anyway, marketing wise, I mean, I did Instagram and word of mouth. And I still swear by that. And I think word of mouth goes still so much further than any marketing budget that you want to have. And word of mouth meaning your character, your morals, how you behave out in public. I mean, as much as you don't want to say this, and but Southern culture, it's kind of almost like my children have a reflection upon me, right? So I
Yeah.
have three teenage girls, and I would hope that they want to behave themselves just because I've raised them that way. But, there's just so many pieces to word of mouth. So there's lots of chit chat.
Hmm.
And small town or big town, right? Like no matter what size community you're in, you're going to have your own pod. Like you're going to
Yeah.
have your own little group of people. So you can take a big town, you're still going to shrink it down to your general area and who you can kind of reach out to. So, but Instagram, I never paid for advertising. And I kind of always touted that and kind of spoke to that for the last 4.5 years. I didn't ever advertise in magazines. I didn't do commercial ads, radio ads. I didn't find that I needed that from a
Hmm.
budgetary standpoint. So I just didn't do it. Now I've had to eat a few of my words, and I actually finally hired a marketing director or marketing firm that is local, which is really nice. I really drug my feet because I kind of got burned a few times hiring things out that were outside of our community because there's something to be said about knowing the community that you're in and knowing your patient population. So I have conversations with people that probably wouldn't translate if I was living in Dallas. I
Hmm.
know things about people that I'm sure that some of my colleagues would never know about there's just different
Yeah.
things to each community. We were able, has been a huge supporter of ours, and we've been a huge supporter of them. And so we got a couple of billboards back
Nice.
in the day from just ordering. And it was so funny, the reaction, because all of my little sweet old ladies at church would be like, I saw you that you're selling, but that sure was cute. So, is the billboard really that helpful? I don't know, but it at least, it's part of it. So, but we've now, like I said, with our new move and kind of our new outlook and all being together and really kind of trying to push forward and just this market. I mean, in the
Yeah.
last 2 or 3 years, like I said, we had two plastic surgeons in town, and I swear this morning somebody it was a hairstylist in town popped up that, he's doing Botox and cutting hair. And I thought, how in the world is this happening? But, you know, there's one on every corner, I feel like,
Yeah.
today compared to 5 years ago. So, you know, I try to just keep my blinders on and do my work and
Hmm.
know that we're doing it correctly, that we, obviously have tons of training, tons of experience. And so we just try and kind of keep on our path.
Yeah.
But yeah, the marketing aspect is definitely tricky. I don't, depending on where you are, I don't know that you need a $10,000 a month budget for marketing. I think good websites and online booking go a long way, and a good Instagram. So all of that
Yeah.
to say, I kind of got
Yeah.
distracted, but I hired out social media for a while. We did a couple of different options. And then finally, when I had 3 or 4 25-year-olds working for me, I said, you know what? This is y'all's jam. So
Yeah.
you guys do this. And so I was able to tell them, these are my goals. This is what I want it to look like. I don't want any cussing. I don't need much dancing. They've gotten me dancing more than I probably would have said I had in the past. But, they have a real feel for what is wanted and looked at online. And so I've handed that off to them, but it is all internal, which is lovely. And, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it from outside people. And I'm always like, okay, great. Like they're doing a good job. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but
Oh,
keeping
that's.
it to where it looks like you and it feels like you. I
Hmm.
always tell
Hmm.
them, I'm like, if you wouldn't show it to your grandmother, then I don't want you posting it. Like, that's the level that we're dealing with here. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. You have a game plan. You bring it in, give it to the right demographic with inside the team, and they're probably having a tremendous amount of fun with it. Like as I look at your demographic, population size, that makes total sense. I think like having a couple billboards up there, I mean, the brand recognition is huge, right? And I'm sure that so it's all about like attribution of everything that you're doing. You have Instagram is wonderful. You can see personality, you can see expertise, you can see your work, right? Because they're buying a result. The patients are
yeah,
buying the result. That's what they're buying. Google reviews, I'm sure, has been super helpful. The website and online booking. So like that tech stack and then aesthetic record, it's ease of use, right? So you're making it easy for the patient. They can find you, they can book, they see you have good reviews, they see you have good work, they see you have good personality, good expertise, and it's just like a layup. I mean, it makes total sense. It makes it super easy and clean. Like you've done a wonderful job. It's really cool to see. So I guess my last question before I let you go, I know that you're super busy and have appointments this afternoon. But my last question is where do I mean I know that you just moved into this new awesome location. Again, you guys need to go to the AbileneBeautyBus.com to check it out. The video is amazing. But where do you go from here? I know that you guys are getting into weight loss, hormone replacement therapy, which look from my standpoint, I think is not only a great business move, um, but it's also a great move for the patient experience. So I have invested as well, hormone replacement therapy, trizepatide, and Simorelin. Like so, those are some of the components that I'm taking, and then also I get injections and stuff like that as well to try to keep me looking young. But one of the things that's been interesting to me is I feel a lot better.
yeah,
I feel a lot better. And I like to look young, and I'm aging. We all age. It's what we do. But I like to look good on the outside, but also feel good on the inside. And so, man, it creates that patient loyalty is just like becomes even better because, man, Dr. Sarah made me feel good, not
yeah.
just look good.
Well, and that, yes. So that is kind of where we're headed. So we've done a really good job, I feel like, of making people look good, look
Mhm.
better, look good. We've been treating all ages. So I have several estheticians that they just love acne and they love to help teenagers and young women who are just struggling with their acne. And we find a lot of joy and pride in being able to help those kids and young people really feel more confident. That's such a hard age, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I have 3 teenage daughters. And so I'm in the depths of what they look like when they walk out that door in the morning. And with school just starting this week, I mean, it's a lot of emotion. And so, we have been able to help people feel better about how they look and appear. But as I have aged, and I think this is really my motivation for a lot of this stuff, is that I am the prime age of all of these things. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to miss my Botox, so I just started doing it. I wanted in on the weight loss realm, so we started offering semaglutide. And we really do it so that we improve patients' lives. Like, I'm not a churn and burn weight loss center. I have colleagues all the time that are like, well, I've got, and it doesn't matter, 150 people or however many people it is they're treating a month. And that's not my comfort level. Like, I'm fine if we just have 10, 15 people, because I feel like we're really encouraging each individual and making it for them. So we've dove into weight loss this last year, and I loved it. Personally, I loved it for all the success stories that we've had. A lot of my employees have really improved their health with it. I have one employee that ended up getting pregnant, from being able to kind
Wow.
of stabilize her hormones. So, there's so many positives to it. And so for me, the next thing was the hormones and the wellness aspect. And, never say never. I swore I was never going to do that. And I didn't want to get back into that part of medicine because it was very overwhelming. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And so, like I said, if I don't have full faith in my abilities, then I'm not going to jump in. But we've been busy training and reading and trying to implement that. So that's kind of the next thing on the horizon, is jumping into the wellness realm a little bit. I like to kind of dip my toe in things and then see what happens. So that's where we're headed in the next couple of months. I kind of teased out that there may be another location joining us outside of Abilene. So we have some things like that. And again, I need to like get a tattoo, never say never, because I swore I was like, I'm never going to have employees. I'm never going to have more than one location. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do, wellness, pellets. I name it all. Like, I think that may be the tattoo I need to get, is never say never, because I eat my words on a regular basis. But so yeah, that's kind of where we're headed. We have patients all the time who are asking us about things, and my response to them is always, I'll look into it for you. And sometimes that is a dead end, and sometimes I run with it and go. But I think we have developed a real relationship with our patients. I think they have trust in us, and so that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is just our relationships with our patients, and how much trust they have in us, and hopefully we keep that.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's an incredible journey, and I think like you may have given me an idea on what to name this episode. I'm gonna have to toy with that for a minute, but on the never say never part, I like it. Well, hey, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
successes, challenges, where you were, where you are, where you're heading, the technology that you use, the expertise and leadership that you bring the team. And guys, I know that she invests a ton in education and networking. I see her at conferences. She speaks on stage. Are you going to be in Dallas next month
Yes,
at
we'll
Aesthetic
be there.
Next? Cool.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
have
Awesome.
8 of us are coming, so that's fun. I think it's
Cool.
our biggest group yet. So
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be there as well. We'd love to see
okay.
you. Come by. I'd like to meet some of the team. But no, this is great. So if anybody wants to connect with you, reach you, I know that I called out the website a couple times, but what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the website's probably the simplest. Otherwise, it's beauty bus, BUS, underscore Abilene, which you may have to look that one up, but Abilene. But yeah, that's our
Perfect.
main Instagram. And so you can contact me there. That's the one I check mostly. You'll find some other links to my personal one. There is a Dr. Sara Trammell one, but I kind of gave that one up when we moved all the way into the business aspect of it. So, but yeah,
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, there you have it, guys. It's been an amazing conversation. I just a couple asks here. If you guys found this content valuable, this episode valuable, please share it. Let's keep the conversation going. We just want to create this content internally and push it out there for anybody that just needs some level of confidence and to help take your practice to the next level. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah.
Thanks,
And I'll let
Cameron.
everybody go. Thank you. And until next time, happy injecting.